وقل رب زدني علما.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So moving on, we continue our discussion regarding the fa'il. We are now discussing hazful fa'il in this lesson, where the fa'il is removed. Okay. وَإِنَّمَا إِمْتَنَعَ. What does imtana'a mean? To be prevented or impermissible. لا يجوز. Impermissible. Okay. في النثر. What does nathar mean? The two types of kalam, speech. Even in English, you have what? Poems and prose. So prose means what? So prose means normal, like normal, not poems basically. So nathar is called prose. So literally nathara yanthuru nathran. You know when you have a rosary bead, we call it tasbih. If you were to break it apart, then what happens? It all scatters, isn't it? Yes, so before the beads were in a fixed pattern. That's called nazm. Yes, it's in a fixed pattern. So poem is in a fixed pattern. It has this many words here, this many words here, and it goes on like that. Different types of poems in English and Arabic, etc. So nazm is called, that's called nazmun. Poem is called what? Nazm. A normal kalam is called what? Nathrun. You following? So we're saying in nathr, meaning in normal kalam, it is not permissible to say what? Ma qamat illa hindun. So what's happening here? We're saying here, if you look at in theory, should this not be permissible? Because we have what? Mu'annas what? Haqiqi majazi. We have mu'annas haqiqi. We can actually see the mu'annas is a real mu'annas. And there's illa as a fasila. So what should be permissible in theory? We should be able to, it should be both, isn't it? Yes, wajhan. Ma qama and ma qamat. Both should be permissible because what? It's mu'annas haqiqi with a fasila. So both should be permissible. By saying here, sorry to burst a bubble, you can only say ma qama. Because it's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. لأن الفاعل, Hind is not the fa'il. لأن الفاعل مذكر محذوف. He's saying here, really, Hind is not the fa'il. Really, what's the fa'il? The fa'il is really ما قام أحد, and Hindun is a badal of that. That's what's happening. So really, because أحد is a fa'il, is that mu'annas haqiqi? Is it mu'annas majazi? No. So you have to have mudhakkar. What's the question? It is mu'annas haqiqi, but that's not the fa'il. What's the fa'il? The verb will change because of the fa'il. You will have alamatul ta'neeth on the fa'il because of the fa'il. So Hind is not the fa'il. Hind is the badal of this. The fa'il is actually ahadun, and ahadun is mudhakkar. So therefore you can't have qamat. So you can't say qamat illa hindun because the fa'il is not hindun. The fa'il is what? Ma qama ahadun. You understand? So what he's saying here, in theory you may have thought you can say ma qama or ma qamat, but when you look at it in reality you can't say ma qamat because hindun is not the fa'il. The fa'il is actually the mudhakkar mahdhuf, ay ahadun. Understood? Yes? Okay. Yes? Did everybody understand that much? Nasr, prose, i.e. not poems, prose. Nasr means prose. Do you understand this one? Now he discussed one scenario. What's mahdhuf? Where the fa'il is mahdhuf. So the fa'il, remember we mentioned before, the fa'il always has to be mentioned. There are only a few very, very rare places you can remove the fa'il. Okay? So he's saying here, for example, كَحَذْفِهِ. You can remove the fa'il in here, لأن الفاعل مذكر محذوف, because the fa'il is مذكر and mahdhuf, just as it is mahdhuf in the following places. I'm just going to go through three more places. So one is mentioned before, that when you have ma qama illa hindun, when you have istisna mufarragh, and the fa'il after is mu'annath, then the fa'il is really ahadun. That's why you can't make it mu'annas. Similarly, if you have the masdar, now you have to remember one important rule. I'll discuss a bit more in the end, inshallah, I think. Or let me mention it here. I don't remember if I made a slide for it or not. The rule is that every amil, every fa'il, which is an amil, and every ism amil, every shibul fa'il. So basically, let's put it this way. Every fa'il or shibhul fa'il must have a fa'il. That's the rule of thumb. What does shibhul fa'il mean? You didn't say al-sughra. What is this? اسم الفاعل اسم المفعول الصفة المشبهة and اسم التفضيل. اسم المضاف is not شبه الفعل. It is amal, it makes a مضاف عليه مجرور, but it's not a شبه الفعل. And obviously the فعل. So, and we missed that one, al-mastar. Al-mastar as well, al-mastar. Correct? So all fi'ls, there's one exception coming up later on, but this has to have fa'il. And the fa'il either be zamir, baris, or zamir, mustatir. Correct? Even in these, you must have either a zamir, when these are in verbal meanings, you must have a dhamir mustatir as a fa'il, or you can have a ismun dhahir as a fa'il. So for example, if I say Zaydun qa'imun, so what does qa'imun have inside of it? Is dhamir mustatir huwa. If I say Zaydan qa'iman, what's the zamir mustatir inside of it? The huma is zamir mustatir, and the alif is what? Alamatu ta'nith, alamatu tasniyah. Correct? You following? So even for example, when you have a sifat tafdhil, you would say Zaydun akbaru min amrin. You say here what? There's what? What's it inside of here? Who was zamir mustatir inside of there? And zamir is usually mustatir. There's one scenario that'll come up later on. So all fa'il and shibhul fa'il must have what? A fa'il. Understood? You got the general rule of thumb? Yes? Right. However, what's exempt from this rule? The masdar. What's exempt from this rule? What can you see an exemption here? The masdar. The masdar does not necessarily have to have a fa'il. You got a choice. You can't have a fa'il, or you can remove the fa'il. Okay? Okay, so for example, let's use another example here. If I say, for example, A'jabani, is it sarrani? Sarra means what? To please. So sarrani pleased me. What's the fa'il? Sarrani qira'atuka. Qira'atuka al-kitaba. Sarrani qira'atuka al-kitaba. What will happen now? We say here sarra is a fa'il, ni is a fa'il, and qira'a is a fa'il of sarra. Correct? But qira'a is also what? A masdar. Who's doing the qira'a? Who's doing the fa'il of reading? You're reading the book, please me. Who's doing the reading? So is mudaf ilay lafzan. This is mudaf ilay in lafz, but in mahal. What is it becoming? Mahallan is what? The fa'il. It's the one doing the qira'a. Yes? And kitab becomes what? Kitab becomes the maf'ulun bihi of the masdar. Okay? So in this example, does the masdar have a fa'il? Does the masdar have a fa'il in here? It does. The mudaf ilayh is a fa'il of the qira'ah. But we can also say, for example, another example, La yajuzu tarku salati. La yajuzu tarku salati. So it's not permissible to leave salah. What's tark? Is that a masdar? Tark is to leave. It's a masdar. Yes? So it's the masdar. It's a fa'il of yajuzu. But who's doing the leaving? It's not mentioned here. Salah is becoming the mudaf ilay in lafz. What is it in terms of meaning? Of tark. What is it coming of tark? The fa'il or maf'ul bihi? It's maf'ul bihi of tark. So is there a fa'il? There's no fa'il. كَحَذْفِهِ. So it is permissible to remove the fa'il of the masdar. A masdar does not have to have a fa'il. So a masdar is an amil, and you can have it without. So if you look at this word, this ayah we have here, أو إطعام, أطعم يطعم إطعاما, to feed. Now it'am is a masdar. That's why it has في يوم ذي مسغبة, in a difficult day, or a day of hardship and difficulty. So this becomes مفعول فيه غير صريح. This becomes the مفعول فيه غير صريح of what? Of the masdar. What's the maf'ul of the masdar? Yatiman is maf'ul bihi. The question is, where's the fa'il? What's the answer? Do you never say mahdhuf? You say there's no fa'il. Mahdhuf means it was there and you removed it. Here there's no fa'il. It is mahdhuf, but here it's mahdhuf meaning it's not there. Correct? So here you don't have to write it. You don't have to label it. That's why hadaf, I don't know if it's the best word here, because when you say hadaf normally, you say for example it's there but you have to make it mahdhuf. For example, it's mahdhuf, or it should have been there but it's not. And here it doesn't have to be there. You don't have to label it. Oh, the fa'il is mahdhuf. You just do tarkib or i'rab about it. Do you understand? So what he's saying here, the first scenario, another scenario where you can remove the fa'il is a fa'il of the masdar. So generally speaking, the masdar usually comes as a mudaf. The mudaf ilayh is either the fa'il or the maf'ul bihi. Il-majroor, it will be what? It will be majroor in terms of the lafz. It will be majroor in terms of the lafz. But in mahal, it will become what? What will it become? Either marfu because it's fa'il, or mansub because it's a maf'ulun bihi. Have you understood? Yes? I said we'll do this more when we get to the ismul amil at the end, inshallah. Okay? Right. Another scenario where you can remove the fa'il, it's obvious, is what? Naib al-fa'il. When you got a fi'l al-majhul or a fi'l al-mabni al-maf'ul bihi. So qudhiya al-amr, Allahu a'lamu, but the meaning of this is qadallahu al-amra. Allah decided the matter. Allah passed judgment on the matter. What have we done? We have removed the fa'il. Allah has removed the fa'il. And now it's qudhiya al-amr. For example, if you have dara, let's not do dara, but akrama. Akrama Zaydun Amran. Akrama Zaydun Amran. Zayd honored Amr. Akrama Zaydun Amran. Yes? So if we remove this, make it majhul Rima Zay Amrun. So the fa is mahdhuf. It's obvious, fa'il majhul. We did that before. That's not rocket science. Now this is a bit interesting here. What happens here now? He's saying another example where you can remove. Ay kahadfihi. Ay, you can also have it removed. I.e. the fa'il can be removed in the example of asmi' bihim wa absir. Asmi' bihim wa absir. So let's do the first part here first. When you have fa'lu ta'ajjub on the pattern of af'il bihi, what do we have? We have a fa'lu ta'ajjub on the pattern of af'il bihi. What's the i'rab of this? We say af'il is fa'lu ta'ajjub. Yes, fa'lu ta'ajjub. It's what? Mabni ala sukun. Yes. And then we say here, the he is the fa'il. What is he? He is the fa'il. Correct? And the ba has been added in. Ba is harfun jar za'id. Is therefore i'rab purpose, not for meaning purpose. Ba is za'ida. And the he becomes the fa'il. The zamir mustatir, there's no zamir mustatir in here. Are you following? There's no zamir mustatir inside. The fa'il is actually he. But because the fa'il has been brought out, that's why you have to put a ba za'ida. This is how they do the i'rab of it. Yes? This is the i'rab of the fa'lu ta'ajjub. So af'il is fa'lu ta'ajjub mabni al sukun, and the ba is harfun jar za'id, and the he becomes the fa'il. Understood? Are you following? Do you understand the first example? Asmi' bihim. Abdullah Abdurrahman, you following? Muhammad Ahmad. Yes. Now it's not mahzuf in here. Can you see so in the first example, so if you go Arab, this is fa'lu ta'ajjub. What's the fa'il of this fa'lu ta'ajjub? The him. But because you got two fa'al ta'ajjub together, asmi' bihim wa absir. The question is, where is the fa'il? Where is it? It's mahzuf. Why? Because the bihim before it automatically implies to us that there's also a bihim here, mahzuf or hidden. So asmi' bihim wa absir bihim, but you don't need to mention it. It'll be extra, unnecessary word, and the Arabs don't use unnecessary word, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So without that, it's more fasih, it's more eloquent. So the first bihim, there's dalala or dilala, and shows us what the fa'il of asmi' is. And we can understand from the context that the same word bihim becomes the fa'il of absir. So when you have two fa'il ta'ajjub together, if the mutaqaddim, the one that comes before, denotes what the fa'il of the second one is, you can remove the fa'il from the second one. Understood? Yes? Everyone following this? Okay? وَيَمْتَنِعُ فِي غَيْرِهِنَّ وَيَمْتَنِعُ فِي غَيْرِهِنَّ. In other than these scenarios, you can't remove the fa'il. You can do hadaf of the fa'il when? You can do hadaf of the fa'il, if you go back to the beginning, because all the text. Okay? So we say here, وَإِنَّمَا. So basically the masala starts from here. Okay? It is impermissible to in nathar, in prose, it is impermissible to read qamat illa hindun, because the fa'il is actually a muzakkar, which is mahdhuf. How is it mahdhuf? It is mahdhuf just as it is mahdhuf, in where? In aw it'amun. And this is an example of what? A masdar. Just as it is mahdhuf in the likes of it'amun fi yawmin dhi mazghaba. I.e. it is mahdhuf in ma qama illa hindun. The fa'il is mahdhuf in there, just as the fa'il is mahdhuf in it'amun. I.e. in a masdar is mahdhuf. And just as it is mahdhuf in what? What's the second example? When there's a fa'lun majhul fa'iluhu, or fa'lun mabniyun maf'ul bihi. Or just as it is mahdhuf, just as the fa'il of a fa'l ta'ajjub is mahdhuf, when the previous context shows us what the fa'il of the second word is. And it's impermissible to do hadaf. Ay yamtani'u ay hadful fa'il. What's the mahzuf here? What's the fa'il of this? وَيَمْتَنِئُ حَذْفُ الْفَاعِلِ. It is impermissible to remove the fa'il in anything else. Ay any other, غَيْرِهِنَّ, ay in other than these scenarios. So whether you have a fa'il or a shibul fa'il. These are shibul fa'il examples. Ismul fa'il. You have to have a fa'il. The fa'il can be zahir or muzdamir, but you have to have a fa'il, ismul fa'il. If the ismul fa'il is in the meaning of a verb, it's a verbal meaning, then it's a participle basically. I.e. going or is going. If you say, for example, Zaydun qa'imun, qa'imun has to have what? A fa'il. Can you see the fa'il? No, it's zamir mustatir. Or if you have Zaydun qa'imun abuhu, then what's the fa'il in here? The abuhu is a fa'il. So Zaydun qa'imun abuhu. Or if you got a sifatul mushabbahatu lism al-fa'il, then even then, so if you say Zaydun, if you have, for example, Zaydun Kareemun. What does Kareemun have inside of it? Damir mustatir huwa. Khala ada ma khala ma ada. You've done this in Bilqi already. Or sughra. So ma khala ma ada. These are also what? Verbs that give you istisna. So even here, these are huwa mahdhuf. Ma khala huwa mahdhuf. Not mahdhuf, mustatir, sorry. Not mahdhuf, mustatir. Understood? So apart from these four scenarios mentioned before, ma qama illa hindun, or the masdar, or I forgot, fa'al majhul, or fa'al ta'ajjub. In these cases, it is permissible to remove the fa'il. And apart from that, all other fa'il and all other shibhul fa'il must have a dhamir. And that dhamir can either be mustatir, or that dhamir can be bariz. هل فهمتم? Everybody understood? Any questions? Muhammad? Ahmed? Should we stop here today then? سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك.